Okay. As chair of the Sanborn Regional School Board's Excellence in Student Achievement Committee, Subcommittee, I find that due to the state of emergency declared by the governor as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic and in accordance with the governor's emergency order number 12, pursuant to Executive Order 2020-04, this public body is authorized to meet electronically. Please note that there is no physical location to observe and listen contemporaneously to this meeting, which was authorized pursuant to the governor's emergency order. However, in accordance with the emergency order, I am confirming that we are A, providing public access to the meeting by telephone with additional access possibilities by video or other electronic means. We are utilizing Zoom for this electronic meeting. All members of the Sanborn Regional School Board's Excellence in Student Achievement Subcommittee have the ability to communicate contemporaneously during this meeting through this platform, and the public has access to contemporaneously listen and, if necessary, participate in this meeting through dialing the following phone number: 1-646-558-8656, meeting ID 933-1890-1585, or by clicking on the following website address: www.youtube.com/c/SRSD meeting videos. B, providing public notice of the necessary information for accessing the meeting. We previously gave notice to the public of the necessary information for accessing the meeting, including how to access the meeting using Zoom or telephonically. Instructions have also been provided on the website of the Sanborn Regional School District, www.sau17.net. C, providing a mechanism for the public to alert the public body during the meeting if there are problems with access. If anybody has a problem, please call 603-642-8541 or email at helpdesk@sau17.net. D, adjourning the meeting if the public is unable to access the meeting. In the event the public is unable to access the meeting will be adjourned and rescheduled. Please note that all votes that are taken during this meeting shall be done by roll call vote. Let's start the meeting by taking a roll call attendance. When each member states their presence, please also state whether there is anyone in the room with you during this meeting, which is required under the Right to Know law. All right, let me find the meeting again here. Where's it? There we are. Okay, Tammy Mahoney, I'm in my house. I'm by myself. Dawn?
Dawn Dutton, I am in my home in a room by myself. My family members are around elsewhere.
Jamie?
Jamie Fitzpatrick, I'm in my home office alone.
Grace?
Grace Evans, I'm at home alone.
Matt?
Sorry. Matt Malilla, at home in a room alone.
Patty?
Patty Haynes, Director of Teaching and Learning, home alone.
Christine?
Christine DeRocher, I am in my home office alone.
Heidi?
Heidi Levitt, I'm at home in a room by myself.
Brian?
Brian Stack, high school principal, home in a room alone, family members elsewhere in the house.
Chris? You're muted.
Sorry, Chris Snyder, Bakey School Principal. I am alone in my school office.
Ryan?
Ryan McCluskey, Memorial School Principal. I am alone in a room, although I hear a stampede coming down the hall because everybody just got home, so we'll see.
Donna? Nope, you're muted.
No, you went on mute, Donna.
There you go.
Good.
Yep.
I'm at Bakey School in the same room as Kim Conant.
Okay. Kim? Just repeat that, I guess.
Kim Conant in the same room at Bakey School with Donna Denell.
And Tom?
Tom Ambrose, I'm at the SAU office alone with the pizza.
Okay. All right, thanks so much, everyone, for taking time to be here. The first item on, first item actually is the minutes of our last meeting. Do I have a motion to approve?
Move to approve.
Second.
Any discussion? Okay, all in favor by roll call vote. Dawn?
Yes.
Jamie?
Aye.
And yes for me, thank you, that's unanimous. Okay, now we have an Alma update.
Just everything seems to be going along. Implementation is still going smoothly and not much to report. Just plugging along.
Okay. Is that something we need to continue to update on the agenda? Is there any?
I don't know that we need to have it on here all the time. The next set of, progress reports, report cards will come out. I mean, I think we can give you an update, maybe not February, but maybe March. We can go every other month now for a while.
You had wanted some input from our committee, I think, on the formatting or content of the report card.
Right,
So-
and what we've got are a couple of templates, and the next set of report cards will be coming out. I believe that's going to be at the beginning of March, because that'll be the end of the second trimester. So what we can do is discuss some of those templates next time. I know that was Tom's goal or desire for the committee to take a look at them to see what's on there. And we have to use what's in the preloaded templates in Alma. But Tom, I don't know if you wanted to speak to that a little bit, because you had mentioned you wanted input on those templates.
Yeah, no, I think you got it perfectly, Patty. You know, we'll work on that over the next couple of months. It's going to be things are going smoothly, and I agree with every other month is probably now, and rolling out the second half of Alma next year, which is really big. So it's regular updates and input is helpful, and whatever Patty needs for input, I support so we can move forward.
So you don't think you're going to need that until, and you don't need to speak about the report card template for another couple months, or do you want me to put that on the agenda for next month?
We can talk about that in March, I think, because we already tried one. We'll see what happens. We're still trying to get some of the other pieces to get going off the ground with that, as far as template pieces and things like that. But I think we can wait till March.
So I'll just remind everyone that because of the election being in March, and subcommittee appointments are made after the election, after officers are elected from the board, we don't always have a March meeting. It doesn't always fit into the schedule. So I'll just sort of, so everyone can kind of think about that. If I suppose we could always go off the schedule if we feel we need to have a meeting. But
That's good to know.
Yes, I would agree. I will work with the board, whoever the board chair is in March, to make sure that Patty gets the information that she needs to move forward. Thank you for mentioning that, though. That does sometimes, especially with snow days in March. There was one year that got really weird. My first year.
Yeah. Okay. Anything else on that? Jamie?
Does it make sense to at least get to us some examples of what the templates are? I mean, if they're pre-canned templates in Alma that you're going to be selecting from, I mean, I don't.
Well, what we could do is I could walk you through maybe the next meeting how you set up the template, because it's not even that the templates are pre-set up. There are components you can either put in or take out. But even with some of that, I think we had alluded to it the last meeting or the meeting before that. There's still us trying to figure out what the capabilities are of the system and things that we're trying to make the system do that we don't need to do because it's not the old system. It's a new system. It's more robust. We can do things in a different way. So I wouldn't want to have you folks sit through us trying to put something together and we think it looks this way, and Kim and Donna jump in because you sat through the training with me, and I think Christine, you did too. There's a lot of things in the templates that we could put in there, but they're not necessarily going to do what we want them to do. Kim, Donna, Christine, you have anything you want to say about the templates and how to create them? Because we had sat through that for the progress reports. Can't hear you, Kim.
Having trouble hearing you, Kim.
No.
She said just to keep going. What Patty said.
Great, what I said, thanks.
So I'm understanding they're not really preset templates, or they're a form that you use to build.
So I misspoke.
gonna
I meant to say that there's pre-selected pieces that you could put into a template. There are some templates that are pre-existing that we could use, but the ones that are in there would not serve what we're trying to get to. But I would be happy to walk you through and go through all the different pieces if that's something that the committee wants to see.
I mean, it'd be interest to me. I don't know of others, but it would be of interest to me.
My feeling is that we might want to wait for until they, until the administration it feels a little more comfortable. It sounds like they're still kind of getting their hands around how these are built and what they might want to look like.
Chris, Brian, Ryan, you want to jump in on any of this? Because you've also dealt with it in your buildings.
Yeah, I mean, we started playing around with it, the templates a little bit. We had reached out to Alma to ask what other schools they're working with have templates, and we stole a couple of templates from them because I think, for our purposes, it might be easier to start with something that a school we already know is using that we like.
Yeah, I agree. I'll just piggyback on what Brian said. I know that I think it's at 6 o'clock or 6:30. I think that Exeter is actually unrolling Alma to their community tonight. And so I have a few connections there as well. And that might be something, again, just to collaborate with those that are kind of learning at the same time as us.
I think what we could do is bring a few samples of what we like best from several districts and what seems to be working well for them, and bring that to a meeting for some feedback.
Yeah.
Amy?
So yeah, I was fine until Tammy spoke and pointed out the issue in the election. My concern would be, I would certainly hope to be able to be on this committee again next year, but if not, I would really like to understand what that looks like if I'm not going to be privy to being on the committee going forward. That's why I mentioned it would be nice to at least see that, even if it's rudimentary, even if it's a separate one. I just come down, Patty,
So,
you show it to me. I don't care how, but I just might not be on the committee next year, so I'd like to at least.
Right. Did you, Dawn and Jamie, did you guys see the progress reports or report cards that went home? Because that was one sample. And I'm wondering what you guys thought of what you received.
It was okay. I mean, there was nothing really special about it. It was, I understand it was in the midst of a rollout, so it was fine. There were some errors in it. So I had personally a line item issue that something duplicated, and it said one thing on one line for the exact same thing. It said something else as to what the grade was. And then there was some characters that didn't belong in there. So clearly something was going on in the pull of the data sets. But it was clear that it was, it was part of a rollout, and there's still some bugs, at least to me, knowing what I knew, and then seeing the discrepancies on the line items with the same exact topic having different grades.
Some of the feedback that I got is that the parents like that the email, they get it out to email. So it's right away, they didn't have to wait for it. And I think it would be easier if you looked at it after the second trimester is done, because for our sake anyway, it will get longer. So I think that we really need to look at what that looks like, because by the end of the year, it could be long, very long, or if we have to shorten that down and how that looks. And so I think bringing in another templates and also looking at what our district is, and so we can put that into place, I think that would be a good idea for after the second trimester's out. As I think it will look very differently because just what you were saying, Jamie, it was a technical thing. So it was doubling and some of the characters were out. So I think that we have to like look at that and see what it truly looks like after the second trimester. If that makes.
Oh, there you are, Dawn. Sorry. You either
okay.
moved or I was afraid.
I know
you-
things shifted around a little bit.
Okay.
So I'm not gonna lie, I cannot get my kids' report cards. My middle school and high schooler, I can't get their report cards. They do not show up. My memorial school student, I can get her report card. I can't get the other two. And I don't know that I've gotten an email. I just tried checking my email to make sure I haven't missed them, and I haven't seen any emails come through for them. So it may be a glitch on my kids. I don't know if other parents are having issues, but I don't have report cards for my middle schooler or my high schooler. So I know I brought it up at one other point before, but I still don't have access to them. And I'm in the Alma online and I have the app and I can't do it either way.
We actually just had grades close on Friday at the high school. And so
I don't have quarter one. I have nothing.
yeah, for quarter one, we had only, that's interesting because we pulled them for just seniors. So that's interesting that Maya's didn't show up.
Yeah, I don't have hers at all. Or my seventh graders for that matter.
So can the people reach out to Dawn just so that Dawn can get the support that she needs and then report to
I don't know if
Patty?
any other parents are having issues as well.
Right,
But I
right.
figured I'd throw it out there. I know I've mentioned before, and it didn't seem to have gotten remedied. So I don't know if other people are having issues too.
I actually had a high school parent call me this afternoon with similar issues. Then I told her I was going to look into it tomorrow. So.
Yeah.
Now, I want to find out where the problem is so that we can see if it's affecting other people, Dawn.
Yeah.
If we can figure it out for you, we can figure it out for others.
Well, that's why I said something, because I don't know if it's just a me or if it's more than just me, but it's like I said, Memorial School, I have it pulled right up here. PDF came right up. It's 3 pages long. You know, I've got it. It's no problem. But the other two, I was like, well, maybe I need to go online instead of using the app. And even online, I can't get it to pull up. There's nothing there. So
I
So you
wonder if
can't
there's
see their
something we have
grades.
to if we have to toggle on or off, because I know for the seniors, we did have report cards that we sent off to colleges
right
in November. So we
Yep.
definitely had them at least for the seniors.
Yeah.
So my guess is that there's some mystery button that we haven't figured out how to toggle it on, and then parents can see it. But
I can see grades. I just can't get actual report cards.
okay. All right. That's
Okay.
good to know.
Okay.
Let's do this. Can I make a recommendation, Tammy?
Yes.
I recommend that we talk about Alma some more at the next meeting. And I think that what we can talk about is, I think the question, Jamie, is I don't want to have the team put something together that I want them to put it together, you know, do it right, do it once type of thing. Do you know what I mean? Because there are different buttons and things that you can look at. If you'd like to schedule a few minutes with Patty to just have her show you kind of what some of the options are, I'm sure she'd be happy to do that. And then at the next meeting, we can just talk about kind of what I was looking for guidance was, as a team, particularly from the board members, what do you want us to send home to your kids? Because it'll help us to guide which buttons to press. So I know what I want as a parent. As a parent, I want to know, is my child at benchmark in the course, right? Is my kid on grade level? How is my child doing developmentally and in relationship to their peers? So it's one thing if my child is behind in one area in reading and everyone else is working on that area too, or is everyone else doing average and my child's behind? And then I also like some narrative about what my child needs help with, because I want to help them at home, right? So I want to know, like, what can we do to help? And even if my son is excelling in school, I still want to know what I could do to improve his learning by working with him. So I think that for me, as long as those 3 things get met, am I at benchmark? How am I relationship? Is my child at benchmark? How is my child in relationship to their peers? And what is the work that they're working on? I feel like I can be supportive. I mean, a report card should never be expected to communicate the entirety of the whole picture of what a child is doing. It's supposed to give an overview and generate a conversation between a teacher and a parent. it's a conversation starter, not a conversation finisher. I'd rather have a parent have a conversation with the teacher and really learn about their child in school than focus on the intricacies of a report card. But that's me, right? So I'm just kind of modeling, what would you like? I'm asking you what, and we can talk about this next time. So let's just kind of talk about the philosophy of it. And Patty and Jamie, you guys can connect and chat about what the modules are, the options are, and then we'll just take a few minutes at the next meeting to talk about it some more. And Jamie, I'm not too worried that you're not going to be on the committee, but I'll throw in a good word for you if I'm asked. How's that?
That would work.
All right. Just give me my greenhouse and then we'll go from, no, I'm just kidding. Y'all didn't see the previous meeting. Jamie has a lot of questions. So, all right.
And the other thing I'm going to point out, because this time of year, it gets really weird with the election, but also in February, our meeting is only 3 weeks as opposed to 4 weeks from today. We pushed it up because the week that we normally meet, I think, is, Tom, you're on vacation, is that right?
Yeah, my children have vacation in Maine, so I'm on break a week earlier. So we have a meeting the second week. So Patty, we have 2 weeks.
As long as I don't get sick again, we should be fine.
We'll be fine. We're also happy to see you.
Our fingers crossed. Okay, thank you. Let's move on to an update on the math curriculum search.
So we've got a little bit of information on that. Donna, why don't you unmute? Okay, there we go. Poor Donna. Technical difficulties. Go ahead, Donna.
Since the last time I was in this meeting, the math committee, which is composed of representatives from K-6 and special ed, we've been listening to presentations from a few different companies. So our next steps is to dig in some more and start trying out some lessons, as well as attend a couple more presentations on the technology within the different companies, what they have to offer.
So we've actually narrowed down based on using the IMET. We've narrowed down to 3, Donna, different.
Yeah, we've listened to presentations from 3 different companies.
3 different companies that meet the needs for what the IMET does as far as standards and being, robust programs. The next steps are to look at how it test drives. So we have to listen to some presentations. We're going to look at what some of the technology offerings are, because the whole remote learning piece is probably going to be with us in some form going forward. So we want that. And then the teachers are going to then actually test drive some of the lessons in class with their kids to see how is it to work with it? Does it fit within the day? Does it make sense? Can the kids work with the material? Is it as easy as the salespeople are saying it is? So some test driving, which will give me a chance to gather all that information from them over February break. I will put together the recommendations from the committee and present that to E.I.S.A. Probably in March. We're going to have to schedule a meeting so that we can select one going forward, so that we can at least get it ordered, so that we can start with that in August or September when school starts, and get whatever requisite training we would need in the summer.
Any questions or comments? Amy?
So we've got a K through 6 and special ed search committee looking at the curriculum at this level. What is the plan to tie that into alignment with the curriculum and the activity that Grace is doing at the other levels? How are we blending this in to make sure that what this committee is looking at is not isolated from what the needs are and what the holes are in our performance at the upper levels? How are we pulling these two together?
So what you're talking about is vertical articulation, which we're looking at also. Grace and Donna have met a number of times. I'm meeting regularly with Grace and with Donna. I met with them both today. And the articulation piece, having vertical conversations, is also going to be something that we're going to do going forward. Between the 3 of us, we have a really good handle on what the needs are across the district. So based on what we're seeing for needs and what the teachers are telling us and some of the anecdotal information, as well as the data that we've collected from our students, we know where we need to go with this, and that's what we're going to be doing. Now, Grace is also going to be working with grades 9 and 10 to look at possible changes to what the materials are that they're using, and figure out what they might need there as well. And middle school, obviously in the middle is the bridge, but Donna had a good handle on that. She had been working with middle school until Grace was hired this year. So they've been in communication and talking about that. So there is a constant communication. And what's nice about the IMET tool that we're using is that actually does articulate right up through 8th grade to look at some of those things. And it's all aligned with the Common Core, which goes K through 12. And that's what we're looking at for the articulation pieces. So between looking at what the standards are that they're asking for and our student performance, we're confident that we'll be able to put things together in a nice dovetail. No, Brian wants to add.
Yeah, if I may, I just want to point out more, since I know this is being shown on, people can watch from home. There's also conversations that happen between the Ellis School staff and their math curriculum and how that dovetails with what high school's doing. And actually their teachers have always been a regular part of some of our conversations going back for several years. So that would also continue if there are changes to be made for the high school program.
Anything else? Okay, thank you. Let's move on to our next agenda item, which is an update on the high school ad hoc committee formation.
Yeah, I'm happy to speak to that. We obviously am eager to get the committee rolling. We have some really important work to do this spring and through the summer. So invitations have gone out to some of the stakeholder groups. The remaining invites will be sent out possibly tonight, but certainly by tomorrow, with the goal of the first meeting being next Thursday, be a Zoom meeting much like this. But you know, we've kind of worked out some of the logistics and stuff that we need to prepare before the committee begins, and yeah, we're ready to get rolling, and excited to embark on this work.
Okay.
But yeah, there'll be a lot to update the next E.I.S.A meeting, but yeah, it's going to be meeting formally monthly, on a monthly basis, which is part of the invites, third Thursday of the month. But there'll be, you know, I don't know if we're gonna do subcommittees or whatnot, but there'll be work to be completed in between meetings. So yeah, I don't know if there are any questions. Yeah, Jamie?
Does that mean, Matt, there's nothing tomorrow night?
Nothing tomorrow night. No, I thought I sent you an email last week, but pretty sure if I didn't include you on, I apologize, but I thought you were on it.
I'll go back and check. So when are you saying the first meeting?
Next Thursday, a week from tomorrow, right? Is the 28th?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And what was the time on that?
3:30, be approximately an hour. And that'll just be really, you know, goals of the meeting, timelines, you know, just really getting started, kicking it off.
Yeah, and you can probably have, I guess I would say, a standing item for E.I.S.A just to get an update from the committee, because for a lot of the meetings, they'll be reporting out anyway, so.
That actually makes a lot of sense to keep that as a standing item.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, a lot of our work it's not going to be completed all at once. Some items will be completed more quickly than others, so. Yep.
If you're going to meet on the third Thursday, you'll be meeting the day after our committee meets. So we'll get the updates will be from the month before probably, but That's okay. Anything else on that? Okay. All right, student success data.
All right, I'm going to start this. I'm going to share my screen so I can show you a few things here. All right, we're going to talk to you a little bit about some of our student success data for the public that may be watching. If you're not familiar what we're talking about, 3 years ago, going on, 3 years ago now, the school board set as part of their policy some goals for the school, for the high school specifically, but really it's for the school district to look at what determines student success for our graduates. And they made a decision that they would like to see each of our graduates from Sanborn be able to check at least a couple different boxes in ways that you can look at student achievement. So there, as you look through this list, and I'm not going to read them all off, there are things here that relate to test scores and various tests you might take, coursework that you complete at the AP level or college level or dual enrollment type level, getting accepted into a 4 or a 2-year college or an apprenticeship, or just earning an honor like New Hampshire Scholars Program. So we've been tracking our data every year, and what you're looking at here is actually a 4-year summary. So 2017, we actually backdated. We went back a year before to see what our data would have looked like before the policy was instituted. So you can see, and then you have 3 years worth of data. 2020 data, the last column in this chart is new for you this evening. That's what we're looking to go through. So we are excited that despite the challenges of the pandemic, our class of 2020 was able to maintain some of the same ground that our class of 2019 students had in terms of meeting these different areas, at least being able to check 2 of the boxes. So a couple things I want to point out, and then Matt and Heidi, if you want to jump in with anything that I miss. We have 2 areas here that definitely were harder for us to track due to the pandemic. One of them was the dual enrollment credits earned. We had a number of students who were taking advantage of the programs that we were offering through Northern Essex Community College. And with the pandemic striking when it did, and a lot of things shifting to a remote format, that just was not something that was as easy for all of our students to shift to. So we lost a little bit of ground there. We also had a harder time tracking some of our industry credentials that were earned. Some of the programs between March and June just really struggled making the shift quickly to remote, figuring out how they were going to continue to provide some of those kinds of opportunities for students, especially with the Seacoast School of Technology that had to go remote. But despite that, there's definitely some positive news here to share. We had a higher percentage of students making New Hampshire Scholars. We had a higher percentage of students getting accepted into 4- and 2-year schools. We were happy to see that higher percentage of students in the Career Pathways program. Another thing to note is the changes that we made to the AP program and summer work with seniors. You will start to see whether or not that's making an impact on data next year when we do our 2021 data. Did I miss anything with that, Matt and Heidi? I can't see you, so you'll have to unmute. Because I have a couple more slides to show.
Just going back to the industry credential, with so many of the students earn industry credentials at their job, and with so many businesses closed down, students really didn't have an opportunity to earn those credentials.
So let me do a couple more slides and then I'll stop sharing so we can see everybody and then we can take questions. It might be easier that way so we can see everybody's faces. This is typically every year we report out on what our class is doing post-graduation. So you can go back in the annual reports and see what that looks like. This is just a breakdown of what this year's seniors are planning to do. So we have 69% of them heading off to 2 or 4 year schools, another 5% with career and technical schools, 5% into an apprenticeship, 17% are going right into the workforce, and we have another 4% headed off into the military. Just wanted to point that out. And I did want to talk for a minute about our graduation and dropout rates. So what you're looking at in this particular chart here is actually a 5-year summary of New Hampshire's graduation rates versus Sanborn's graduation rates, and then also the dropout rates. So just so everybody is clear, the way New Hampshire calculates a graduation rate, it's based on the students, percentage of students who are able to complete a high school diploma in 4 years, and a dropout rate is actually the students who basically fall off the radar from us. They don't enroll anywhere and they don't complete some kind of a program. So these numbers don't add up to 100% because there are students who take more than 4 years to complete a program. And we are actually in the process right now of validating some of the 2020 data for the DOE. So that 2020 data hasn't been posted yet to the DOE's website. But this just gives you a summary. We have historically had graduation rates that are higher and dropout rates that are lower than the state average. That is a trend that goes back a pretty long way, and that's a testament to really Heidi's staff, guidance counselors working really hard with students to find a plan that's going to work for them to be successful. And you know, over the years, the school board has been very good about putting a lot of different options into play. Students, so we have multiple opportunities to help students be successful. I will tell you that with the add-on of things like the 20 credit diploma, extended learning opportunities, different partnerships that we've made with businesses for internships and evening division courses at Exeter, adult ed and other places, that has really helped us open more doors for students and keep them in school, because our goal is to help them get to that finish line. And, you know, I wish we could get to 0% dropout every year, but inherently, you know, these percentages are really just based on 1 or 2 kids. And you know, sometimes our best efforts that, you know, the kids just have some insurmountable odds above them that are really hard for us to crack though. So let me stop sharing so everybody can see everybody, and then Amy, we could take whatever questions people might have.
Tom?
It's 2 quick points. This morning I was on a call with the Department of Education about the Every Student Succeeds Act and the way that schools are identified as being successful or failing based on the federal government's guidelines. That dropout rate or the graduation rate is a critical component. Schools that are considered to be failing have 67% of students graduating. We have 98 point whatever it was. I just can't stress enough that I know that our SAT scores need to improve. Okay, I'm not denying that. I believe that. We all on this call believe that that's important. But these other indicators that we have are absolutely out of the park excellent. So it's like we're almost like this. We've got all these amazing things happening. And then we've got like not great AP classes and SAT scores. We need to balance it out. But what I don't want to do is lower this to get this up. I want it to be like this and like this. I want both to be excellent. So I'm just saying that it's always important to look at areas of improvement, but this is a real point to celebrate. The other thing that I wanted to point out was in Brian's first slide that he showed, the opportunities for kids to earn some of the credits in the second category, the going to SNHU, going to college classes, diminished in the spring because it's really hard to do that under COVID. So there is a dip there, but I think that's a COVID related dip, not a failing on the staff or a change. It's just a symptomatic of the time. I just wanted to make sure that Brian agreed with that. So that's all.
Yeah, no, 100%. And just if it's helpful for people in the chat, I put the link to those slides so that you can go back and reference them as you need to. There's also, if you go on the DOE's website, they have a tremendous amount of data on high school tracking completers and graduation rates, and going back, gosh, probably 20 years at this point. Very easily accessible. You can download Excel files. You can drill down school by school. You can look at different data points that way. So it's pretty good, publicly available.
Republicans, the lies that were told to Republicans that resulted in the 116. I'm not sure what it is that Biden is going to have to work with.
Does someone have a TV or radio playing in the background going on in someone's game?
Yeah, somebody's got politics on.
I know, I can do. Does anyone have any comments or questions on the Jamie?
On this slide, it shows the SAT scores at 27% in 19 and 27% in 20. My recollection was that we went down in English and we went down in math. So I'm not sure how mathematically we stayed flat in SAT scores from year to year.
Yeah, I can look at that, Jamie. That's, it could be that it's the number of students who took the test was different. I know that we didn't have as many students take the test as we normally would, but I can go back and look at that Excel sheet. We have a sheet. It's not for public consumption because it has student names on it, but
yeah, correct.
It pulls the data in, so we're able to load all the test scores into it, and then it extracts and it pulls out the percentages that way. So I'll double check that and make sure it's not, pulling the wrong formula or something like that.
Well, I also think that it's important. I noticed that too, Brian, and thanks, Jamie. I forgot to mention it. The part of it that I want to bring up is what was on Brian's document is the students who passed both. The average of both.
Oh, yeah.
Not one or the other. So, excuse me, Brian, if you could drill down to that and just email everyone, I would like to know that too.
Yep, I can.
And then this one, and not to be an overly nitpicking SOB, but just for people listening and so that people are understanding my perception. So Brian, I'm picking on you. So Brian made the comment that, if we have to do something different in the high school math program, and my contention would be, and my belief is we need to do something different in the math program, given what the results are. I know it's probably just phrasing and you weren't.
Oh, yeah. I didn't feel it was my place to say definitively one way or another. So I was like, I don't disagree with you, Jamie. I think we do some different things.
Well, because of that
If you
small
want my
if.
personal opinion.
Because of that small if, I wanted to make it known that my definitive opinion was that we needed to do something there.
That's why we have Grace on that. Grace and I check in probably weekly, and she's doing a really good job with the team, unpacking things, building relationships, developing trust, getting them to think outside the box. Now I'm speaking for Grace so that she doesn't have to toot her own horn on it, but what I like about what she's doing is she's taking a very methodical look at it. She's the outsider looking in. She's definitely bringing different viewpoints and challenging thinking in different ways. And I think teachers would actually tell you they appreciate those things that she's bringing to the table for them. So we all agree, although we do think instruction is really where the biggest lever is going to be for change. It's probably less about what curriculum we choose and more about how we're delivering it. And but that'll come out as they continue to work. I'm confident of that.
Can I just throw in a couple of quick things about that, because I think it's really relevant to the conversation. So I'll just give a quick overview of what I see happening here. And Jamie, feel free to ask any clarifying questions because I'm going to try to be uncharacteristically brief. Our high school does an amazing job building relationships with kids, keeping them engaged in school, and getting them to stay in school until graduation. Our high school does an amazing job getting kids to figure out what their learning style is like, getting them connected with SST, getting them connected with colleges, getting them connected with extended learning opportunities. We do an amazing job. I mean, really, I've never seen any place like it. Kids are connected to adults at Sanborn Regional High School. When we have students that are in the higher academic profile, they do really well because they push and ask questions and get the help they need. It's the kids that I would call in the yellow zone that we're struggling to move to the green and blue zone academically in reading and writing and math, reading and math. So in other words, you have your high blue and green kids and your kids in the red that are struggling. There's a group of kids that are right in the middle that are in that yellow zone that could do better in reading and writing and math. And they're a wide group for us, and we're targeting them. And some of the strategies that we're going to use to target supporting them are revamping the master schedule to improve the amount of contact time in core content areas, realigning the curriculum K through 12 with a specific emphasis on getting K through 8 to Algebra 1 in 8th grade. So that's how that splices together, Jamie. You asked earlier about the splicing. The splicing is that we really want to make sure that whatever math program that we choose in K through 8 helps us to get as many kids as possible ready for Algebra 1 in 8th grade. But the reality is if you're not ready for Algebra 1 in 8th grade, it's a mistake to put you there because it just causes frustration. So we need to really look at it as a developmental sequence, not a squashing kids into Algebra 1 event, right? If they get what they need over a 5-year period, then they're going to be ready for it. We want them ready for it. That's my message about that as a major priority. Another priority is really changing our instructional practices. We talk a lot here about data and information, but we really are going to start, you're going to start hearing from me, especially as soon as the pandemic or when the pandemic slows down and is less of a burden on us all. My conversation is that the number one thing that makes a difference in whether or not a student does well in school is the quality of the teacher in front of them, the instructional practices in the classroom. So I've said it since the time I was hired. The big criteria is an aligned curriculum, really effective assessments, and super solid instruction, and then remediation support for the kids that don't do well when that environment exists. We're addressing all of them. We're addressing them in math and reading and writing. And I think that my background is in doing this work in reading, but it's clear that for our district, math is the priority. So Grace is stretching my thinking, Donna Donnell is, Kim Conan. I'm going to start meeting regularly with Donna, Kim, Grace, and Patty myself to talk about things because it's time for us. We've done a lot of hard work around finances, reorganizing the district, getting the intervention program set up without charging any more money to the taxpayers. But I think that the gist of it is now it's time to focus on instruction, right? It doesn't mean that the budget's not important. It doesn't mean that I have to be careful about those things, but there's always a reason to not talk about instruction. There's always an emergency. There's always something going on to take you away from instruction, and instruction is really what we need to talk about. But don't get me wrong, the master schedule at the high school and getting the frequency increased is a part of instruction because you got to have the time to do the instruction, right? So you can, you know, so that I'm just kind of framing things up. Like, so when we do our strategic plan, I want this group to literally think about when are we going to do X? When are we going to do Y? When are we going to implement the reading changes? When are we going to, you know, we've got to really set some deadlines now for when we're going to do. I'm so excited because I'm finally getting to the work that I love. I mean, trust me, I don't mind selling the seminary and reorganizing the district. That's really exciting work. I learned a lot, but this is why I'm in schools, and we're all in schools to help kids learn. So we're really excited to get it. I was so excited for this September to focus on teaching and learning, and it has been incredibly emotionally draining to not have that be the focus. But I gave myself a 5-minute limit and I just hit it, so I'm done.
To go back to your previous point, I double checked those numbers with SATs. Tom, you are right. It is because it is a this and this situation. So the data sheet is taking every single student, it's got their reading score and their math score, and then it's awarding them a point if they met both conditions that they had, the 480 and the 530 for the math and the ELA. And then it's taking the percentage of kids that scored a point for that. So that's probably where that comes from.
Okay, we have a few more minutes, and then we're going to wrap up. Any other comments, questions? Okay, thank you very much. So our next meeting, as we already discussed, 3 weeks from today on February 10th, we'll talk about report card templates and content for the report card. I have an ad hoc committee update as a standing agenda item. Anything else that we know right now that we want to add on to that agenda? Okay. All right. Well, if nobody has anything else, then we will adjourn.